action. Okay, so Kevin had a question for me about an arthritis diet. So there isn't exactly a diet that is made specifically for arthritis, but there are anti-inflammatory diets or practices that I am a big proponent of. So the idea is always to do things or add things into your nutrition practice that will help with the healing process and not harm. And the unfortunate reality is that the standard American diet is usually highly processed, full of fructose, and lacking omega-3s, lacking fiber, also very high in glycemic index. So with all that, in addition to a high-stress diet, if you just do the opposite, we're good. So thank you very much and turn this off. But obviously it's more than that. So the idea is if you have a diet, and I've evaluated your diet diary, and I say there's not enough fiber, not enough protein, or not enough omega-3, then instead of just cutting cold and say, here, this is what you got to do, what I would suggest is you kind of wedge in those things that are healthy. Now, you can still have your obligatory bad food for whatever reason you're craving it, but if you make it a conscious effort to follow the numbers, whether it's 30 grams of fiber, a wide variety of different fibers per day, and I know the paleo guys don't like to follow fiber, but if you look at the population studies, most of the longest lived cultures in the world will usually have a bit of fiber. If you are following paleo, you might be able to do other things, such as increasing your omega-3, and omega-3 from walnuts, omega-3 from fish, omega-3 from avocado, from flaxseed. All that would be great, but you obviously got to get it in there. And to fill in, I've seen results where 2,000 milligrams of total omega-3 in the morning and 2,000 milligrams at night is probably a minimum of what I would do for a cholesterol sufferer, definitely an arthritis sufferer, definitely somebody that's coming back from a stroke. So the only problem with a stroke is that sometimes the neurologists don't like it because it thins up the blood. So if you're on Plavix, you got to wait a little bit. Same thing with turmeric, but I'm digressing. So if you can get that omega-3 source in, beautiful. Try to wedge it in. If you can't fit all that volume in, then you take the capsules. And certain capsules will say a lot of stuff on the bottle, as you'll see in my DrRic tutorial omega-3 oil video. But you got to read the labels on the back to make sure your total omega-3, which is EPA and DHA, are up to par. I'd say 1,000 milligrams of both of those per capsule is good. You'll have to find on the web different companies and have to research the companies, so I'm not sure if they're really watching their fish sources or you're getting a whole bunch of mercury with that, but watch it. You can take whole foods too, canned mackerel, sardines, herring, all important, but they stink up my office, so I have to eat them and then I have to burn incense, or I have to eat them outside. So that would be important. The fiber sources, as we talked about, fine. If you can get anything with turmeric, I like turmeric tea, I like turmeric capsules, but if you get turmeric or ginger, add that to your diet, also very anti-inflammatory. Sometimes I'll try to get patients to take advantage of or avoid the nightshade groups. So now we're talking about avoidance. Definitely avoid the seasonal, standard American diet crap, which is mostly highly processed or fructose. Fructose can be disguised. Trans fats can be disguised. So best bet is to just avoid the boxed juices and the canned drinks. If you can avoid those beverages, you'll knock out a lot of fructose, and you don't need that. Fructose technically is a low glycemic index food, which means it's a good food, but it's not a good food. I think fructose does so much damage. If you watch the lectures of Robert Lustig online about fructose something or other, he talks about, he spends about an hour in each of his lectures talking about how fructose affects the liver and causes an inflammatory reaction. You can see how that goes. It's just a bad man-made sugar, so avoid that. Avoid alcohol sugars. Try to avoid dairy products if you can. Even if it's organic, I think there's just a big protein that comes from a cow that might turn on the inflammatory response. Perhaps you can get back to it later. And Amanda had a nice question about what kind of diet should you do to take care of allergies. And this is kind of the same thing. but that's more restrictive, so I'll have that one saved for another day. Also, maybe avoiding the nightshade group, as I was alluding to earlier. Nightshades are eggplant, potato, tomato, red bell peppers, and a couple others, but those are the big four. And the nightshade group has been known to cause inflammation. So if you're suffering from some kind of arthritic attack, a joint problem, or if you just want to heal up fast, you're recovering from something else, a rash, some other ailment, you might want to add that to your, subtract that from your diet while adding the other things I just mentioned. You can also try to avoid gluten. I have some patients who kind of go gluten every other day, and that's not the way it works. And in fact, this might address Amanda's question, because when you do a withdrawal diet, now everybody likes to get allergy tests, but they're expensive. And if you have an environmental issue, it might be worth it to get allergy testing, whether it's scratch testing read by a good dermatology clinic or allergy clinic, or the blood testing, IgE testing. IgG is probably okay, but IgE testing is there too. It all tells you what you're allergic to, and if you can spend the money on the environmental stuff, you might be able to get desensitized to those things, and that's also a cause of inflammation. But those certain foods that fructose or refined sugar, corn, soy, wheat, gluten, dairy, these things are known to cause irritation. So I'm getting more into the allergy type aspect, not necessarily the arthritis type aspect, but for folks who are trying to clean their slate free of irritants in the food, I would do everything as far as wiping out all the nasty things that I've just gone through, both arthritis and allergy, and trying to be on a bland diet for about 2 weeks. Get that crap out of your system, even if it's not a general allergen, but more of a specific allergen to you. Get it out of your system, maintain a bland diet for 2 weeks so that the white blood cells are decreased in their irritation, and then you reintroduce 1 week at a time the Sinister 7 or the food group that you're testing out, and you see. So usually that week they introduce your offending agent. You'll be able to check off and say that one's a no, and that just saved you a lot of money on the food sensitivity testing. That's a way to do it. Then you can limit what you expose yourself to in the long run. Sometimes it's polyallergies, so you'll have several different allergies, say 3 environmental ones: mold, dust, ragweed, a cat, and you'll have a couple other food groups you might add twice a week, and it's the combination of everything that turns on the white blood cell. Whether the white blood cell turns on a stuffy nose, a cough like an asthma attack, or a rash, those are all white blood cell mediated reactions. And sometimes if you're suffering from symptoms, finding out exactly what turns on those white blood cells, whether it's a specific one, which you can kind of figure that one out, or a bunch of smaller ones all together that just makes your body a little irritated, you should find them out. That way you can eliminate that issue. Again, an allergist might help with that, or just going on your own. But if it's just an arthritis issue, going back to Kevin's question on arthritis and diet, then I'd stay away from the basic things that cause the general population to act in irritated fashion. And you also, especially during the times that you're exercising and you induce inflammation, it's okay to induce inflammation. Inflammation is actually a reaction. It's supposed to be positive. It's supposed to use the inflammatory reaction to fight an infection or to fight some form of trauma that is trying to invade the skin or is inside the body. But it's such a great system of checks and balances that there's also a system that turns off the inflammation. So the problem is when the body doesn't have the system on as far as turning off the inflammation, and you just ramp up your inflammation. Then instead of attacking a mosquito bite or a cut or a cancer that's trying to duplicate, you'll have the white blood cells attack the wrong things: the thyroid, the skin, the bowels, the brain, and joints. So it's a tough call, but if you are suffering, I'd say a restrictive diet might be important. if you are suffering from allergies, a limited diet would probably be important, and maybe elimination diet would be important. But the reason I use food to attack a medical disease process is because America is so full of crappy food. It's so ubiquitous around us that we are tempted to eat bad food. Every 10 minutes on a TV show, you're tempted to see something on TV. Da 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 da. You know, it's kind of catchy, but you have, your brain thinks about it. I have my office right next to a Dunkin' Donuts and across the street from a McDonald's. And I think last time I filmed something, to get into a 7 to 10 minute drive down this Route 59 corridor, I came across, I think it was 12 fast food restaurants, and not including the Walgreens and the 2 or 3 gas stations in the area. So you're always going to be tempted, and if we're stressed, poorly slept, not well rested, over inundated with medical disease problems, guess what's going to be the fast relief? It's either going to be a drug or a food source. And most of us don't do drugs, so what do? We go for food. And food is illegal. It's legal, and it's plentiful, and it's cheap. So the only problem is when you get into that glycemic index, I did a lecture a little while ago on glycemic index. You get into that glycemic index, you're going to cause a crash, and you're going to hunt for crappy food. So stay on the up and up and try to maintain a good diet, whether it's an arthritis diet or an anti-allergy diet. Try to maintain it, and hopefully also get a mindful practice going. And for those of you who don't have a mindful practice and you live around the area, I'm putting together a March mindfulness lecture. I'm going to include a yoga instructor, a Tai Chi instructor, a mantra meditator, and then me. And we're going to talk about our specific ways to calm down. You're going to have to do that because when you withdraw from the foods, no matter which problem, arthritis or allergies, you're going to have withdrawal because you're used to the side effects of the food. And food is meant to cause this wave of craving. And when you don't have it anymore, you're going to have to kind of get really solid. So that's called a detox. And detox, or the Herxheimer reaction that happens during the time you withdraw, that can be nasty. Headaches, chest pain, shortness of breath, brain fog, bowel flare-up, asthma, all those things, rashes, they can all flare up when you withdraw. But after you get past that Herxheimer reaction or the detox withdrawal phase, life is great. So you have something to look forward to. Just need a little bit of reassurance while you're going through that withdrawal phase. But at that point in time, most of the body, the brain, the heart, the skin, the muscles will now get used to eating properly, resting properly, and you're on fire. You won't crave that stuff anymore. Usually takes about 2 weeks to get used to it. Just have to kind of rock your way through there. Maybe have a coach or two support you too. So hopefully this helps. Great question, Kevin and Amanda. Great questions. If you subscribe to me.